Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so your friends see it. Thank you.
Trump lawyer urging restraint on Mueller is odd man out. President Donald Trump loves a killer, and he just added one more to his legal team with Joseph diGenova. But the hiring of another veteran Washington scandal attorney who views special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation as illegitimate is hardly good news for Ty Cobb, the White House lawyer who's now left more isolated than ever in his pleas for cooperation with the Russia probe. Trump's legal team has been sending mixed messages for months about Mueller, with Cobb arguing that a go-along, get-along approach has the best chance of bringing about a rapid conclusion to the Russia investigation. That's a sharp contrast with John Dowd, the president's personal lawyer, who has urged Trump to resist a sit-down interview with the special counsel and made his biggest splash yet this past weekend by calling for the whole investigation to be shuttered. The president's lawyers aren't just fighting among themselves. Their disagreement reflects Trump's own divided views about how to handle a scandal that has overshadowed his first year in office. It's also why the talk about Mueller being fired won't go away, no matter how many statements Cobb issues from the White House saying that such a move is not being discussed and has never been under consideration. The latest Trump lawyer dispute represents a clearer manifestation of the two-track process that has been going on for some time: pledge cooperation, and presumably give cooperation, by providing requested documents and making people available for interviews, while letting your surrogates attack Mueller and company in hopes of ultimately closing down the probe, said former Whitewater deputy counsel Saul Weisenberg. Trump's legal team is bigger than just Dowd and Cobb. At the White House, Cobb has been leaning on as many as 5 aides, including Stephen Groves, who stepped down last August from his job as Chief of Staff to U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley. There's also Jay Sekulow, who has frequently used his live weekday talk radio show to criticize the Russia investigation while also spearheading the president's legal defense research on some of the constitutional questions at the center of Mueller's obstruction of justice investigation. Sekulow also contributes the work of 4 attorneys with ties to the nonprofit he runs, the American Center for Law and Justice. Trump has also sought advice on the Russia scandal from his longtime lawyer Mark Kasowitz, a New York-based attorney who originally led the president's response but stepped down last summer, and Fox News Channel host Jeanine Pirro, who Trump has also known for decades. Others who know the president say they try to get their legal advice to the president through the cable shows they know he watches. If he can watch TV, he knows how I feel, Roger Stone, the GOP operative and longtime Trump political advisor, said in a recent interview. Despite all the legal advice coming his way, a person familiar with Trump's legal strategy said the president's natural inclinations of swinging hard are starting to show, even as his lawyers continue to fight among themselves. There is no strategy in place here, this person said. This is the president, period. It is the president looking at his history of dealing with tight situations and public fights and how he feels most comfortably fighting those fights. This guy likes fights. And he trusts his own instincts. He trusts it above the instincts of his own lawyers. He trusts it above the instincts of his own communications team, whether inside or outside the White House. Trump's attack dog approach to the Mueller probe will get another potent voice with diGenova, a former federal prosecutor who once served as an independent counsel to investigate whether aides to President George H.W. Bush violated federal law by searching Bill Clinton's passport files during the 1992 presidential campaign. He is slated to start later this week but has been channeling his inner Trump for months, calling former FBI Director James Comey a dirty cop, blasting Mueller's ethics and arguing that the Russia probe had dubious origins. There was a brazen plot to illegally exonerate Hillary Clinton and, if she didn't win the election, to then frame Donald Trump with a falsely created crime, diGenova said during a Fox News appearance in January. He added, "Make no mistake about it, a group of FBI and DOJ people were trying to frame Donald Trump of a falsely created crime. The person familiar with Trump's legal strategy said the addition of diGenova is a bad omen for Cobb, who was sent out on cleanup duty late Sunday with a one-sentence statement insisting a weekend's worth of anti-Mueller comments from the president and Dowd should not be interpreted as signals that the special counsel's job was in jeopardy. "I don't think he's long for this team. It's clear the president wants to be more aggressive," this person said. Indeed, about 12 hours after Cobb's remark that the president is not considering or discussing the firing of Mueller, Trump took to Twitter with a Monday morning post suggesting the special counsel faced ethical challenges that merited closer examination. "A total witch hunt with massive conflicts of interest," Trump wrote, echoing complaints he made in private last June to White House counsel Don Mcgahn in an order to fire Mueller. Mcgahn ignored the president's request, told senior colleagues he'd resign over it, and then shared details with the special counsel about the interaction when he was interviewed last December. Cobb's fate has been up in the air for months. Some Trump boosters were arguing late last year that Cobb should be fired because he'd set up unrealistic expectations about when the Russia investigation will end. But Cobb remains on the White House payroll, even though his workload has dwindled since last fall. That's the byproduct of the Russia probe moving away from the document production he was in charge of and in assisting Mueller in arranging a spate of initial interviews with current and former White House aides, including Mcgahn and outgoing communications director Hope Hicks. A defense lawyer working on the Russia case said Cobb had recently been marginalized by the other Trump attorneys working on the case. "I don't think he's going to get fired or quit," said this attorney. "I think the president kind of likes Ty and feels a little sorry for him." Trump slams total witch hunt after weekend upheaval. President Donald Trump on Monday appeared to renew his attacks against the ongoing investigations into allegations that his campaign colluded with the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 election, labeling them collectively as a total witch hunt with massive conflicts of interest. Trump's Twitter post comes on the heels of a weekend over which he celebrated the firing of former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, whom the president has regularly accused of bias, and lashed out at special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe, wondering on Twitter why Mueller's team is comprised of 13 hardened Democrats, some big crooked Hillary supporters, and 0 Republicans. The president's attacks against Mueller, along with a statement from a member of Trump's legal team calling for the Justice Department to shut down the special counsel's probe, raised suspicion over the weekend that the president might take such a step until Ty Cobb, another member of Trump's legal team, quashed that speculation with a statement issued Sunday night. The president also lashed out over the weekend at former FBI Director James Comey, whom he fired last May, writing on Twitter that sanctimonious James Comey was McCabe's boss and made McCabe look like a choir boy. In subsequent posts, Trump labeled Comey a liar and accused him of falsifying memos that the former FBI director claimed to have written after his interactions with the president. Comey, who has himself taken up Twitter since leaving the bureau, responded on Saturday with a post of his own, writing, "Mr. President, the American people will hear my story very soon. And they can judge for themselves who is honorable and who is not." Deal to curb Hill's sexual harassment unlikely to be in spending bill. A bipartisan, bicameral agreement to overhaul Capitol Hill's oft-criticized workplace misconduct system is unlikely to get attached to a must-pass government spending bill this week, according to multiple sources tracking the issue. The sudden shift in the fate of the Hill harassment measure, which negotiators were closing in on as recently as last week, jeopardizes its chances of getting signed into law by President Donald Trump. Lawmakers and aides who shepherded the House version of the bill to passage earlier this year had eyed legislation keeping the government funded as the best chance to get Congress-owned rules reformed before the midterm elections. But with the spending bill hours away from public release and a Friday deadline to avert a government shutdown, Aides on both sides of the Capitol were anticipating that the overhaul of the Hill's policies for deterring and punishing workplace harassment would fall by the wayside. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, DNY, whose sweeping rewrite of Hill harassment rules counts 30 Senate co-sponsors, said she was appalled that leadership in both chambers would not address the issue in the spending bill. It begs the question, who are they trying to protect? Gillibrand said in a statement. I can't think of any legitimate reason to remove this language other than to protect members of Congress over taxpayers and congressional employees. Don Stewart, spokesman for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, RCI, disputed Gillibrand's contention that elements of her harassment legislation were on track to get attached to the spending bill. The government funding bill is still being developed, so I don't have any update on the final bill, Stewart said by email. And while this important issue is being discussed, at no time was language from Senator Gillibrand's bill adopted to the legislation and/or stripped. The House last month approved by voice vote a pair of measures designed to overhaul a congressional workplace misconduct system that lawmakers in both parties have excoriated as unfairly burdensome for victims. One of the two pieces of legislation is a resolution designed to take effect immediately by changing House rules, while the other House-passed proposal requires Senate passage and Trump's signature. Most of the significant elements of the harassment reform plan, the product of months of bipartisan talks, is included in the House-passed bill that the Senate has yet to act on, including a requirement that lawmakers personally pay for misconduct claims when they are found personally liable. Mere weeks ago, Congress was gripped by sexual harassment scandals that ended the careers of a half-dozen lawmakers in both parties, whether through resignation or retirement. But with the government funding deadline days away, the prospects of any last-minute reform deal are stalling. House Democrats are blaming their Senate colleagues for the 11th-hour change, saying a push by Senate Democrats to weaken language related to discrimination settlements is behind the standoff. The House bill as passed would require lawmakers to pay for both sexual harassment and discrimination settlements out of pocket. But Senate Democrats want to nix the discrimination provisions, a dramatic weakening of the bill, according to one House aide. Key negotiators on the House side, including Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, and Representative Jackie Speier, Democrat California, are opposed to such a change. Another senior House source said the chamber's leaders want to add its already passed harassment bill to the government spending legislation. There's currently a discussion about what kinds of discrimination members would be responsible for, and we would like to stick with the border house language, the source added. A senior Senate Democratic aide said the caucus had no issue with keeping the stronger discrimination language in the package. Other provisions in the harassment bill would eliminate the required counseling and mediation that victims now must undergo before pursuing a claim and mandate a public report on taxpayer funds used to pay for misconduct settlements on the Hill. Rachel Bate and Burgess Everett contributed to this report.